Welcome to the Business of Real Estate podcast with Lynn, Hoffmann, and Eric Johnson. Today we are talking all about mortgages with our special guests from RBC Mortgages and Mission 35 Mortgages. Today we're going to be talking about building those relationships with realtors, looking at what are some things that you as a realtor can do when working with a mortgage professional, and what are some of the things you need to know to pass along to your clients. All today on the Business of Real Estate podcast. Welcome back. So today we have a couple of special guests, and Lynn, we might as well get right down to introducing them. So with us on the very far end is James Buckland from RBC Mortgages, and beside me is Rebekah Basken from Mission 35 Mortgages. Folks, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
So James, why don't we start with you, a little bit about your background and history in the mortgage world.
Yeah, for sure. So I've been with RBC for about 22 years. Had actually opportunities to help train some individuals too as well. So it's been a great career, and right now invested in the mortgage world, and very vibrant opportunity for us to help out our clients, and as we continue to do so.
Awesome. Rebekah.
I am with Mission 35 Mortgages. I have been an agent for 3 years. I've been working at the RE/MAX office for those 3 years, and it's been a really great opportunity to get to know realtors, networking, and it's been really awesome.
Yeah. So, I mean, the nice thing about today's panel is that we got some good diversity.
Yes.
Somebody newer into the business, somebody, in it, we'll say a little more experienced, not older. Seasoned, okay. It's very interesting because, Lynn and I were talking about on our last episode, we brought in a little bit about the mortgage professionals and how important it is to have that good relationship. Yeah. And so, Rebekah, let's start with you being a newer agent. I mean, when you came in, it really was about trying to get established and building those relationships. Tell us a little bit about sort of the struggles and what you found worked for you.
Yeah, so when I first started out, I didn't have a finance background, so I didn't come from the bank. So I really had to focus on growing my network and creating referral partners, a client base. So for me, being in the RE/MAX office, having that opportunity has been really great for me. It's opened up a lot of doors. The networking has been great. Realtors are a great referral partner for mortgage agents. Obviously, we work hand in hand. So just developing relationships has been really awesome to be in the office, and you're down the hall from somebody. If you're working on a deal together, something comes up, you can, go over and you can have a conversation. Or if something comes up on a deal or something you haven't seen before, you can talk to the agents and say, hey, look, have you experienced this before? So it's been a really awesome experience being in the office. It's been really great for me and just helped me build my business huge. And another thing for me, when I was getting started, I started on a team, and that's been a huge advantage for me, having mentorship and guidance throughout the process. Just getting started, it was huge for me.
And Mission 35 is an independent broker, so that you have access to a lot of different lenders, correct?
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah. So with James, you being, you've been in it for a while, talk a little bit about, when you first started to now, and also being part of a bank, especially a big bank here in Canada.
Yeah, absolutely, Eric. In my 22 years, it hasn't always been in the mortgage world. So when I came in, a lot of people that have a lot of connections automatically think that you'll have the ability to connect with a lot of realtors just off the cuff. But at the same time, you have to prove yourself in the actual industry too as well. So it's great that you know people, but one of the things that I had to do was make sure that I kept myself aware of the fact that somewhat new when I started, but also to make sure that people knew exactly how I was able to, develop relationships with realtors and actually show myself with the capability of getting deals approved and helping out our clients. So that's a very important step, to have that communication. Also with RE/MAX too as well, a couple of agents that I work with have been great to work with, and I think we'll talk about it probably later on, but communication is huge. Mm-hmm. It's a key driver in making sure that you stay relevant and that there's clarity around both the client and the other partner that you're working with.
That's what we were talking about
too,
right? Last week? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious to know from each of you what you've done in your respective field to get to know the agents better?
Yeah, so for myself, I think, again, being in the office has been a huge help because you're seeing people face to face. So even, it's more than just about all the deals that you're doing. It's that relationship of, hey, how's it going? How was your weekend? Following up, oh, how are your kids doing? Oh, you had this on the weekend. So that's been a really big advantage for me, is just having the face-to-face communication, because it's a deeper relationship than just working on a deal and just the surface level of that. And just different networking events, things like that. Again, I think it's just having that greater relationship of getting to know people versus just transactional.
Okay.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like, it's the little things. It's the open communication. Sometimes even more beyond just a realtor relationship is also just a friendship, a camaraderie. I've got a lot of realtors at Remax that I have on social media, so we can see what we've done each other on the weekends and have that conversation and build that connectivity that way too as well. Another thing I would really say that's been huge is also working with a lot of clients. You get to see a lot of Remax realtors on the actual purchase sale agreements. So then you start to get that communication that way too as well, and say, hey, Mr. So-and-so, I'm working with your client. And that's a great demonstration of how effective you are as a partner. And they can see that, and that can replicate towards other communications and other realtor deals that we have to do.
Good.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's interesting. Rebekah mentioned about, joining and being part of a team. And I think, if you're an independent realtor, one of the nice things is developing that relationship with a mortgage agent or mortgage broker allows you to create sort of that team of your own. So think of them as being part of your extended team. You may be an individual broker, but really you do have a team. You have the managers at your office. You have the marketing people that do your marketing material. You have the mortgage professionals. And I know when I was, part of a business network group, one of the key things was that being an independent business owner, you really don't have anybody to talk to, and sometimes your family gets tired. They don't really know the business, to be honest. Like, they love you, but they don't necessarily understand the business. So having somebody else who understands the business is very important. So that's why I think that, James brought up the communication, but I think in the camaraderie, but it's that ability to share those things. And, because there are frustrations, right? It's not all sunshine and roses. We were talking about, getting into the different markets last week. And so, we talked about how things can shift. And sometimes in a buyer's market, when things are going crazy, it's really important then, especially to have a good relationship, because things may change. We may have to go in with a bigger deposit. How does that affect, the lending capability? So what if they could come up with more upfront? How does that affect their mortgage? Could they go a little higher, et cetera, et cetera? And James, you brought it up, is that communication. So ideally, because this is for realtors across, North America, really, what do you suggest at the beginning? Like, what do you like to see from a realtor when it comes to establishing a connection with somebody brand new?
Yeah, no, I think a lot of times when we're talking with a realtor, having to understand enough what the client's needs are, but also talking about what the market looks like. We all have to have an understanding of how things could look, and when we're talking to clients about purchases, there's that discussion and communication about what is out there, what to expect, what the range could be for that valuation too as well, I think is important. That way no one's caught off guard. Those are the big things that I see in that type of environment. A lot of times with realtors that we work with, it's very open to that. And if the communication's there, then there shouldn't be any issues with that. But it does come up from time to time. Yeah.
Rebekah, when we look at, trying to get established, so being a newer agent in the mortgage business, and so let's take a look at a real estate agent who's brand new in the business. So, what are you looking for when you're making that connection? Or if they were to make a connection for you, what are you hoping for at the beginning?
Well, I think it's really important to, get to know people and have that relationship, because you want to work with people that have similar values and morals to your own, and people that are going to treat your clients the way that you expect and want them to be treated, and vice versa, right? They want to make sure that we get along. You want to work with people that you get along with. It just makes the process a lot easier. So getting to know agents is really important, whether, it's just networking, going out for coffee, whatever that might be, connecting just to get to know each other, talk about the market, and if they're new to the business, just a little bit about myself and my business, getting familiar, that sort of thing. I've dealt with a lot of new agents, and I found that that's kind of the first step that I've taken with them, is just the get to know you, the coffee, chat, whatever it might be. And a lot of new agents may not know about the mortgage industry, especially if they're not, coming from a different brokerage, that sort of thing. If they're new to the industry, I think just having that conversation and letting them know how my process works and my business works has been, I believe, helpful to them, just to get a better understanding of mortgages and the process and how that's going to affect their business and a transaction, just if they're not familiar with it. So getting to know people, and then just kind of laying out how to refer, I guess, if you will. So how to refer myself to their own clients and vice versa, just getting that relationship underway.
That's awesome.
Are either of you doing any videos to tell the agents in your respective offices and areas what the market is doing? Are you giving them market updates? Are you providing them with any information currently that they can take and rebrand and send to their clients?
Yeah, and I think for us at RBC, we do have approved marketing material that we would provide to our social media outlooks, and it does really focus a lot on the housing market as it's ever evolving from whatever time you have. So we definitely do it, and then I do get a lot of my realtors coming back to me and saying, "Hey, notice that you just posted this here. Can you talk to me a little bit more about that?" So it's also great to see that, because you can understand that people are looking, they're inquisitive, and it's just a deeper way to develop that connection.
Right. Very good. And Rebekah, you?
Yeah, I'd say I post on social media, and I work with a lot of realtors, teams, things like that. They've asked me, hey, can you come up with a feature sheet for my open house this weekend?
Right.
Hey, can you come up with, a comparison chart for buying now versus back then? So I've had a lot of realtors reach out, and I'm happy to, come up with something, collaborate with them so that they can brand it for themselves too, and put it out to their clients.
That's great.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, and I think it's important, and I've seen that where mortgage professionals will put together those sheets and allows them, and I've seen them also be there. I think you've been out, I know with a couple of our agents down my way, is you've been out to those open houses and been there with them to help support them. And I think that goes a long way, right? One of my questions, let me ask you, James, is that for some, because you've been in the business a while, and it was interesting, Rebekah was talking about, how can I refer you? How can you refer me? That type of thing, which I totally believe in. But I do hear some agents that will say, hey, you know what? This particular mortgage agent has been in the business, for a number of years. My God, like he has his favorites, right? Like he's got to be feeding 2 or 3 agents only, and I'm not going to see any referrals, so I'm maybe not going to refer him. But I know that's not the case. So let's talk a little bit about that and where your approach is when it comes to giving and getting referrals.
Yeah, so when it comes to giving referrals, which I always feel is the precursor of getting, because if you can give, then you'll be able to receive a lot more from your realtors. A lot of times it's personality too as well. Like, I have a good discussion with my client in terms of discovery, and right off the bat, a lot of times what I'm doing is I'm mentioning that I work with a team. So a lot of times we get those clients that come back and say, I already have a realtor that I work with. Well, great. You know what? I respect that. However, I do have our individuals here that I would love to have you introduced to and have a second opinion. The market's very volatile. We want to get an idea of how that looks. So a lot of times what we do is at the very, very beginning, we have that deep discovery. Do we have a group of realtors that we work with? Absolutely. I think every mortgage agent or broker does. But it's all personality fit. I might have an individual that might mesh well with an Eric Johnson, or I might have another individual that mesh well with a Lynn Hoffmann there too as well. So that plays a big factor. And then from there, we just really figure out exactly, proximity, where they located, what type of home are they looking for. Sometimes the experience of a realtor also determines the type of client that I'm going to refer them to based on their size of home they're looking for and things like that. So it's good to have a mix of individuals, but at the same time, you want to make sure that you're doing what's right for the client and the realtor too as well.
And Rebekah, along the same lines, so not so much, having that person, reach out, give you those referrals and then looking for them back. But what is something that you would like to see them do connecting with you more? Because I think that for a lot of it's easy for a realtor to say, hey, I just referred this, but they never really speak to you. Like, how often does that happen?
Pretty often, yeah. They'll just say, hey, here's a client, reach out to them, and then, but you again don't have that relationship where it's just here you go, but we haven't even really talked or got to know each other. So again, I just think having that relationship with people, because like James mentioned, you have certain people that you might refer different clients to. You want to have a good understanding of certain realtors so that you can refer different clients to different realtors, because not everybody's going to mesh together.
Right.
And I think it's important that they do reach out and talk to you every once in a while. Again, it's building that relationship. And just like, keep in mind, guys, that, when you're working with clients, it's about continuously building the relationship with your clients. It's just as important to build your relationship with that mortgage professional. It's so key because you never know when you need to reach somebody, immediately. Like when we get in those crazy markets, like, we've got an hour.
We're in.
I need to be able to reach you on the phone, and if you haven't established that relationship, and I don't have that number handy, it's important to reach out and build those relationships. And that brings up one question I had was, what's one thing that you wish that realtors would do more of when it comes to working with you and the clients?
I think it works both ways. Like, I wish realtors had more time to communicate with me more consistently, but that also goes hand in hand with us as mortgage agents and brokers too as well. And I think we lose sight of it that, I talked to Eric last week. I may not talk to you again for 4 weeks. 4 weeks is a long time, right? You're wondering what's happening. And it doesn't have to be necessarily a client that you connect with Eric in 4 weeks about. It just might just be, hey, you got a minute to grab a cup of coffee? Or, hey, did you catch that game yesterday? You need to have that rapport. They need to be part of your cohesive family unit in the business world, if you will. So I would say I would like to see more of that with realtors, but I would also be very silly not to say that I look at that myself too as well. And I think that, like, again, it's the synergies are very common between realtors and mortgage brokers and agents. So it can't just be, I need my realtor to talk to me 4 times more than they usually do. If that's the case, then I need to connect with them 4 times more. Sometimes that's who's going to make the jump first. I wouldn't worry about that. I think it's just more focus on how you're going to do it, and it'll replicate with the other individual too as well.
Okay.
Do you ever get involved in doing small events in the offices or with the agency you're working with? You're doing some small events. Are you actually meeting with them and their clients, or how could you put this relationship more on steroids for them?
Yeah, for myself, we've planned, myself and my team, we've planned some events, specifically with RE/MAX. We work with Eric a lot to plan events at the RE/MAX offices, at our offices, because we think it's really important for the networking and just, getting out of just the office or the transactions and getting into just building a relationship and getting to know people and collaborating too, right? Because you get a group of people together, you're going to talk about business probably for sure, and you're going to say, hey, this is what I'm seeing, hey, this is what's going on, and you're collaborating, and it's really neat to see. So we've planned a lot of different events, whether it's just social, Christmas parties, or if we plan educational events where we've brought in different lenders, and different things. So I really love doing those events because it's, getting to know people on a different level more than just transactions.
Yeah, lunch and learns with the realtors just to really give them an idea of what's happening in the market and, even in the banking world, just to know what's going on there too. But it's true that what Rebekah said, because you might have a client that you refer to, they see the realtor, they see me, but they never see us together at the same time.
Yeah.
What a great way to have us both come together cohesively, and the client can see that synergy between the realtor and the mortgage agent to work together in regards to how the full process works from beginning to end.
Yeah. Have you ever had one of the agents come to you and say, can you do an event for my book of business? So can they get their clients all together and have one of you come and talk to an event that they're doing?
I would love for that to happen. I haven't seen many events being planned. We've had a conversation of, just attendance at events, things like that. I think in the last couple of years, the in-person events have had kind of funny turnout. Sometimes you get a whole ton of people and then sometimes you don't get any. So I would love to see people come to events, and then at planning events, I mean, I would totally be open and love to collaborate and do that
I'm
stuff.
talking more specifically about where one agent or a team of agents have their client base and they invite their client base as a one-on-one, their group with one of you, so that you can really talk, not just one at a time,
Yep.
to a whole group about what you do, because you both do very extremely different things and you have other different things to offer
Yeah,
to groups.
I've had it in both ways. So I've
Have
had
you?
it with a
Okay.
realtor, and even a lawyer would come to
Yes,
as well
exactly.
and have that
Yeah.
conversation,
Good to have.
and we would have just the basic education piece on whether it was, you know, first-time home buyer or a repeat buyer or someone who's downsizing. We would go through that whole component. And I've also had it where the realtor has been invited to one of our events that we would also host to as well, because we'll also have conversations around investment planning too, so
Right.
from a bank perspective. So it's worked both ways, very effective, and it's interesting when you have those clients there, you usually have one or two that are really open to speak. And all you need is that one person, and it just really enlightens and gets the whole audience talking too as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
I think we need to do more of that as a realtor, mortgage
I
brokerage
agree.
group too as well.
Yeah.
For
I'm
sure.
going somewhere with this.
Yeah.
I know. Like,
Yeah.
I'm going somewhere.
and that's also part of that communication piece, right?
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of times when we're looking to communicate with our partners,
Yeah.
we're wondering, what are we going to talk about? I just talked to him last week. What else are we going to? Well, here's a great opportunity for us to engage in an advice event collaboratively. Here's an event that we want to do, or maybe an open house, like Rebekah has done, and myself too as well. Going to the open house, dropping off a couple of copies, you know, just wishing well, and yeah, just constant communication. That's
I've got one I want to throw at you because it's come up in conversations in my Oakville office, and that's reverse mortgages. So, I mean, I think that's a topic that a lot of consumers are looking at. They don't understand, and people tend to think somebody's trying to rip somebody else off with that conversation. But I think there's a lot of value in that kind of conversation, and also how to build wealth. How to use you guys as their catalyst and partner to explain to their clients how they can build wealth. To me, there's a lot of things, and it's better to do it in a group than it is one-on-one, because that takes too much time. Right.
Yeah,
And-
absolutely.
And I think there's, on top of that, there's a lot of topics that you guys
Yeah.
can do. And same thing for the realtors out there. I've talked to people, I've been part of where I was sort of the moderator for an investment seminar. It was actually held at an RBC office in Guelph, so the realtor came to me and said, hey, we're looking to do this investment seminar. Would you be able to help us? And I was able to help him put together the questions, et cetera. But bringing together the realtor, the mortgage, insurance, home inspector, the property management, I think especially, for you realtors that are, especially in a college or university town, there's a great, chance or opportunity there to get people to look at investing so that their children can live for free. Okay, we'll put the air quotes in there because they're allowing the other people to pay for that mortgage and the carrying costs, those type of things. So I think, I know you two would both be open to that.
For sure, yeah.
Do you, and I don't know if there's a difference because, with a bank, is there any limitations? So let's talk a little bit about the difference between the bank and the independents. So are there any restrictions on your end, on the big banks?
in restrictions in having a presentation like that.
Or presentations, or what are some of the things like, number of lenders, that type of thing, how far, A lenders, B lenders, C lenders, et cetera, where...
Yeah, and I think from the bank's perspective at RBC, we have our own internal B lender division that we would work with, right? So that would be one element that might be different. In regards to everything else, there are certain products that we might not lean on. However, we might be able to give different advice in different ways. So like reverse mortgages is not something that we would do at RBC. However, we have been able to educate our clients, our senior clients specifically in regards to what other effective ways we could do things that way. But aside from that, no, we actually want to be out there in the market and have those conversations with our clients. So other than that, I think I'd love to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Rebekah, in terms of being with an independent, so what's some of the benefits for working with that independent broker?
So working for a brokerage, I deal with multiple different lenders. So we've got, in the A space, the big banks and monoline lenders, and we've got B lenders and private lenders. And we deal with all types of clients. It allows a lot of opportunity for different products. So we can do reverse mortgages. I have lenders that will do that, and we can work with different companies, rent to own, that sort of thing. So there's lots of different lenders that offer a lot of different products. So there's definitely lots of opportunity for clients, and then for education purposes as well for the agents.
I think that's what the agents need to understand and learn, that their client base is a very diverse group of people as well, and not one situation fits all. Correct. So I think it's really incumbent on the realtor to start to know what banks do, and what you can do, and what Mission 35 can do. I think it's very, very important that you get these guys educated, because I have seen very recently where a lot of my agents, their new best friend was their mortgage person, and having that close relationship to stop a deal from going south, where one lender was not going to be able to get it done. They thought they could get it done. They couldn't get it done. And then one of my other lenders has jumped in and literally saved the day, saved the deal. So it's really very important for them to come to you. I wish I could, maybe if it's referrals, maybe referral will be the carrot that gets them there, but they need to talk to you guys more about what you offer and how you can help when something's going sideways.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you brought up one size, doesn't fit all.
It doesn't.
And it's because there are a number of people that will, they won't necessarily talk to the independent because they like dealing with their bank. They have a good relationship with the banker. And that's one of the advantages to the big banks, is that they're doing their banking there and they have that relationship, right? So it does help. It does definitely help. We were talking last week about, one of the things that comes up sometimes when it is a seller's market is that towards the end of that seller's market is all of a sudden it's like, whoa, we sold up here, but now because every bank and every lender does the appraisals at a different time, correct? And we can see where all of a sudden, if it's a longer closing, say 2-3 months, and it may change, the value may drop. So let's talk a little bit about how you guys, what do you do in terms of educating the clients? What happened? What can be done? Other than just coming up with a big wad of cash going, I got a shortfall for that buyer, right?
Yeah. I think it's case by case. So I'll give you a couple of things that I can tell you that the banks will do. So one thing that we have is that we do a firm approval.
Right.
So if we have someone that's approved 3 months prior, we've already done the appraisal at that time. And if the closing's 3 months later, we don't really have to concern ourselves with that appraisal coming back because it's already been firmly approved, right? There are situations where maybe the time frame isn't that long, and for whatever reason, the market has taken a dip and the market values are different. I know we've had the ability to appeal an appraisal. We'll actually use a couple of the realtors that we know to kind of go out there and give out other comparables. But for the most part, we don't see a lot of that, knock on wood, because of the fact that we've got that firm approval in place, which is up to 4 months. Yeah. And in some cases, if it's a new build, it can be up to 3 years too as well. So, but it does happen. And I think a lot of times there's a little bit of that, again, leveraging the realtors for the appeal and kind of taking a look to see what other values are out there to make this more justifiable.
I think it's important. You brought up about the new builds, how they take longer. So finding out, it's incumbent upon you as a realtor to check with the lender for your clients to see how long does that rate get held for? When does the appraisal get done? I mean, obviously, that's got to be hard for you because there's so many lenders and there's so many variables with each one. You got to really make sure you find the right lender for that person, right?
Right. And I mean, just specifically with appraisals, everything, like James said, is pretty situational. It's case by case. It's not just, a solid rule for every lender. It depends on the market. It depends on the home. It depends on the value, the price. There's a lot of factors that go into whether or not a certain lender will do what we call an AVM, where they do kind of an instant automated appraisal online, or if they're going to require an appraiser to go out. Right. All those factors play into that. So it's not really a firm rule for a specific lender that, okay, we're going to go here because they always do this. It's pretty situational and case by case. So it is kind of tricky sometimes when you don't know if the lender is going to ask for an appraisal, but that's always something, having a good relationship with the lenders, we can say, are you going to require this, or can you look at doing an automated appraisal because we have a quick closing and things like that. So really, I think it's important to have a good partner, mortgage partner, who has good relationships with their obviously working for yourself, but with different lenders to be able to do that and advocate for the client.
One of the things I want to just mention to the realtors that are watching is that you really need both these people, because they both bring something totally different. You may have been an A bank client for your whole life, but there could be that time where you need a private lender, or where you need something just a little bit different outside the box, and it may only be for a year, and there's nothing wrong with that. You've got to realize that there can be two scenarios going on here. If somebody's house doesn't close, if your house doesn't close and you've got short on cash, then maybe Rebekah's firm is the one that's got more flexibility. But that doesn't mean you can't go back to your A lender when that period of time is over. So I really want to say that you're like two halves of a key. There's two sides to it, and both are very important for you to get to know.
Absolutely. Yes. And thank you. Yeah, no, it's so important. It's true that, there's benefits to both, because there's some products that, RBC is better at than even, having all these lenders. There are just certain things that certain lenders are really good at. So it's important to have
And I think it's incumbent on the realtor to know that. And we were talking about that.
Yep.
Know your business, know what's available, get to know these folks, and really spend some time, and then educate your clients on what's out there, because the sky is not falling. There's always some way to get this done. And what I've seen from both RBC and Mission 35 is that they'll get the job done. Mm-hmm. And that's what's the most important. And I think when clients have that comfort level that they can get it done, things will work a lot smoother. Everybody will run well, and it's a great thing. I want to ask James a question, though, about some of the programs that you have for doctors. Now, do you still have some of those programs in place?
Yes, we do.
Okay, can you explain that to the folks?
Yeah, for sure. So a lot of our medical professionals, we have a program for a lot of the residencies and the individuals that are in the fellowship.
That's before they make a lot of money.
That's before they make a lot of money. Because the bank knows that they're going to make a lot of money.
That's exactly what I was getting at.
So with that, we have a projected income that we'll use for specialized roles.
Right.
And a lot of times that goes a long way, especially when they're coming out of university. I mean, it's not uncommon to know that university is a very heavy cost.
Yes.
Most of our students are coming out with a lot of debt. But that projected income is in place to know exactly what they're going to receive, and we'll leverage that in our application. Obviously, there's a little bit more incentive for us to have the mortgages in approved fashion because of the consistency of their income and the industry that they're in. So definitely a huge factor in terms of where we led a lot of our business. Yeah.
And so to be fair to Rebekah's side, can you talk a little bit about your private lending?
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of different products out there. If you needed a private lender, we've got access to a lot of different private lending companies as well as individuals. So just based on needs and best suited fit. Mm-hmm. Again, we do a discovery call. You get to know the client, get to know their needs and wants, and from there decide, okay, this would be a good fit, give them some options, that sort of thing. So lots of access to different private lenders, and really it depends on their appetite for business, as with all the lenders and banks, what they're willing to take on at the time.
Right. But very diverse.
Yeah.
And this is what I wanted
absolutely
to kind of bring out a little bit.
Yeah. And I mean, with Mission 35 as a brokerage, we deal with, the A lenders as well. We deal with the A lenders that have their broker channel, your TD, Scotiabanks, that sort of thing, and then, all the way through to private lenders. So it's really diverse.
Very good.
To me, I think that the two words of the day are communication and education. And we can even throw in relationship. I think, it's important, especially if you're a newer agent, it's important to educate yourself on what are some of the things that the lenders in your area, because Mission 35 is somewhat limited in scope within the province and across the country. So it's important that no matter where you are, that you do find those companies and educate yourself. And I think it's also incumbent upon the mortgage professionals to make sure that you're putting out that education material and you're educating everybody and knowing, hey, here's the different programs, here's what you need to know, whether it's those medical professionals, or I've seen my kids have gone through professional school and they get offered those type of things, the lines of credit, et cetera, to get established. to, you know, the private lenders. What are the private lenders? And I think we've also seen some changes also in some of the amortization rates and numbers. And so and we've also seen, we were talking last week about how, you know, when people bought high, right, and then all of a sudden the rates changed and they can't afford that home, that there are solutions. As opposed, you don't have to always sell. Maybe you do, but you guys do have solutions, right? Like we're in that period right now where there's some people going, oh man, I bought 2 years ago and the house prices have come down and I got to sell. So, you know, talk a little bit about some of the conversations you may have with those type of clients. How can you help save them to stay in their home? I'll start with.
Well, it's pretty situational, case by case. You're going to have to evaluate, you know, everything as a whole. You know, if the clients no longer can afford the home or qualify on their own, okay, well, do you have a co-signer or someone that can come on the mortgage with you when it comes time to renew? Or do you have someone who, you know, are you renting out the property now? Is there potential to do that? Again, co-signer, guarantor, just any sort of way that you can maybe, if you need that on the application when it comes time to renew, there's lots of different options out there potentially if, you know, the clients couldn't on their own afford the mortgage at the time of renewal.
Yeah, I think a lot of clients sometimes don't realize that depending on the situation, their amortization can be extended. Right. So a lot of times they're coming to us in a panic, but haven't been educated fully on what other options are out there. So that's definitely one avenue we like to approach. The co-applicancy is pretty big too as well. And then, you know, sometimes we'll allow clients to maybe defer a payment for a few months if need be, if the situation warrants it and there's a temporary, you know, lull in what needs to get done. So not cut and dry, but definitely there's solutions.
Yeah, and they could also maybe extend the amortization and then look at, we'll do maybe a 2-year renewal or a 3-year because if we forecast or we see that the rates may be coming down sooner rather than later, maybe do a shorter.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of, again, case by case scenario, we got to look at the market, but that's where you guys are the professionals. And it's important for the agents to make sure that they're speaking to you when their clients are coming to them, saying, "Is there a way?"
For
right?
sure, yeah.
Because it's a stressful time. Let's admit it.
Let's admit it. It's very stressful. It is. And sometimes it might be a case where the client needs to just refinance. They may need to pay the penalty and refinance because the long-term effect of the refinancing at a lower rate, which is starting to happen, might outweigh them staying where the one that they're in right now. So again, it just comes down to them talking to you and you giving them the best advice and seeing how you can help these people, because I know you're going to have a lot more of these conversations coming up in a little while.
Yes.
There's a few coming.
Yes.
And maybe it's just that they need to stay where they are and hunker down and do some other things. I mean, may take a tenant on or things like that in order to get things done. But yeah, but I think one thing we talked about last week was just that people are somewhat reluctant to talk about finances, and some of them are in denial about the actual state of their financing, and they don't always tell the agent the real truth about where they're at. It's sort of an oversight sometimes, and I think that's why it's really good to get your clients in front of a professional that can help direct where they need to go.
Absolutely. That's huge. People, you know, don't like to always talk about their
No, they
finances.
don't.
They just want to, you know, tunnel vision, pretend it's not happening sort of thing. So yeah, definitely getting, you know, they don't need to tell the realtor all that stuff.
No,
you know,
they
it's
need to tell you.
important to be upfront, but getting them in front of a mortgage professional where, you know, they can be comfortable disclosing their finances and talking about that. It's really important.
So one of the things we were talking about as well was one of my pet peeves is agents that are taking clients around. The clients say they can afford 1.8 million, okay? But they really can't. They really can only afford 1.2. So that's where they need to get in front of you so you can say what it is they can afford, and then you send them shopping. So how long do you hold your rates for with a client? How long can they go shopping for before something changes?
Yeah, so for our pre-approvals, it's generally a 4-month period. However, that also is something that we continuously have a communication with the client on. Let's say we get to the 3rd month and, you know, there's nothing that's happened, right? We can reset the application to extend that time frame.
Okay.
You know, from a rate perspective, I think, you know, the 4-month period is what we normally see. And a lot of times when we're having a conversation with our client, we're talking about when are they realistically looking to buy? And that also allows us to understand exactly when the right time to do the application
Right.
needs to be too.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, and it's the same for, I think, most banks and lenders across the board. It's 120 days for the rate hold.
Okay. Somebody asked me the other day, so I'll ask you the question. I think I know the answer. If they sell their home and they've had a mortgage, how long do you guys allow them to hold that to port it over before it is dead?
Yeah.
Because they haven't bought anything. There's the realtor's taking them out, still looking.
Yeah, no, for sure. You got to
And they
find
need
that
to
nice
get-
dream
you
home.
need to- yeah. So how long do they have with a port?
So we have a 4-month period.
4-month period
on
for the
both
port.
ends too as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 160 days.
120 days.
120 days, yeah.
Yeah, and
Same.
it's pretty standard, I think, across
Yeah.
the board, the 120 days for reporting.
Because that's what I told them.
Yeah.
And I think it's also important that, we talked a little bit about the difference between pre-qualified, pre-approved, and, when people seem to think, we see this probably more in the US than Canada, but that online, getting that online approval versus speaking to an actual professional, right? So I'm not naming any names here, okay? I'm
James
not going
just
to bring
rolled
them
his eyes
up.
on that one.
But I'm sure you two have both seen it, heard it. What's the like for the newer realtors out there? What's the danger in that online?
Well, I think you just hit the nail on the head. The danger is that you haven't talked to a live person, right? And the online is only as good as what you put in. So no one else has kind of gone through and verified some of that information. When we have our clients that go onto our portal do that, we get an email triggered to let us know, and we call that client, and we go ahead and do. Sometimes we'll do a pre-qualifier too, but it's a pre-qualifier done by a live body, where we kind of go in, no credit check done, just do a quick review of what they've told us to give them an idea and a range. But what we want to do is we want to look at the approval component too as well. So pre-approvals are different where we actually do a credit check, we've done the application, and it's a little bit more meat on the bones to give to the realtor to actually go out there and have a little bit more conviction and confidence to go out and hunt
Shop,
with
yeah.
their client.
And so what are you giving the client, Rebekah? So how, if I'm a realtor and I have my client saying, well, I got approved for this, what is it that I can get from you that shows that they are approved for that amount?
So if they go through a pre-approval with a live agent and they go through that process, credit check, and you've done your background check on them, I usually give them a pre-approval letter that they can take out with the realtor when they go house shopping, so they know where their range is, what they're pre-approved for. There's still some factors that should be verified for a specific property, but that will give them an idea of where they can go shopping.
So if you are a newer realtor, make sure you ask for that letter. Ask for a copy of it, because that's the worst thing, right, Lynn? Like you said, go show them
100%.
the $1 million homes. They can only afford $500,000-$600,000.
Everybody's disappointed. Everybody, and it's a horrible spot to be in. But that's another place where that rate sheet at an open house is very handy to have. You could have at the top, you can afford this house, and then you can put the different income levels, different whatever, and this is what it would cost, and this is, how much it would, you do the whole thing on the rate sheet. Where people come in, they may not even think they can afford it, and they may go, oh, you know what, based on this, maybe I can afford it. I'll have a conversation. Because again, they're not talking. And the other problem, nobody teaches you financing in high school or college.
I know.
I wish they would.
Nobody. And then you have the differences between two people, two married people or living together people. They have a different way of handling their finances. And sometimes they're not always, they might have missed a couple things about the finances that didn't come forward. And those surprises you don't want at the end. So that's why it's the good conversations are really important. Trying to be delicate about it. It is what it is. You need to have a conversation around it. It's important, and it's good for the process.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So just in wrapping up, just sort of last thoughts in terms of, your last thoughts to a realtor saying, hey, build this relationship. What would you say? Last thoughts.
Eric, I would say that building a relationship comes to communication. That's the biggest component. When you find someone that you've reached out to and you've connected with, try to make an effort, whether it's through a calendar or just through your own mindset, just to have that continuous conversation. touch base on a weekly basis, if not, every other day, to kind of go through what's happening in the market and what's also being able to be available for you and your clients to work with. I think that's the biggest thing.
Rebekah?
And I would say super important communication and just reaching out, building a relationship. Especially when you're getting started, you want to build up your network and your network of professionals and reaching out. I'm sure a lot of mortgage agents would be happy to have a conversation with you, tell you about their business, and education is huge as well, especially when you're just getting started. Learning just how the business works and different processes. I think it's really important to line yourself up with someone who can appreciate that and help you kind of move forward with your business. And if that's education or whatever it might be, I think that's really important to have those relationships with those people.
Can I add one thing?
Yeah, I was coming to you for final thoughts.
Trust. I think, and all of these things that you've just mentioned, do develop it, but there's nothing better than to be able to trust these people and to trust that they've got your back and that they're going to do the best job for your client. So that's why you get to know them. That's why you build these relationships. It's trust.
For sure.
Yeah, there's nothing better than that. It's the hardest thing to build and it's the fastest thing to lose. So it's very important to me.
Yeah, and so I think, in wrapping up, we've heard a lot of good things from everybody here around the table, a lot about communication, a lot about building those relationships. And I think it's very important, and Rebekah mentioned this at the beginning, is that learning how to refer them. How can they best refer you? Is, asking questions like, is there a referral that's not right for you? Right? So perhaps, it's the bank and saying, hey, there's certain people that they can take on. Mm-hmm. So it's very important to know that, who not to refer, and along with who to refer. But along the way, educate yourself. As much as we are all in the business, there are things that happen on the financial level that we don't always know. And so where these professionals are on top of those things and they know the things that are changing, whereas you may not. So it's important, as James said, he mentioned once a week. So do not be afraid reaching out once a week, a couple times a month. Get in front of them. And it's so true is that there is something to be said that people, when they go, may take them a long time. And I've seen some studies where it said it takes them a number of months to decide whether to buy or sell. But when it comes to choosing that agent, whether it's the mortgage or the real estate agent, that decision can be done within 72 hours. So it's important to be top of mind. So reach out to those mortgage professionals. Just because you've sent them some deals doesn't mean that they're thinking about you, because they could be getting deals from a lot of people, but only 2 or 3 are actually reaching out and establishing a relationship and communication. So continue to build those relationships, continue to build your business, and we appreciate you so much for joining us here today. And we appreciate both of you, Rebekah, James. Thank you so much for being here. And we'll see you guys next week on the Business of Real Estate podcast with Lynn Hoffmann and Eric Johnson.